one of the things I also want to share in this surrender version, it's the difference between defeat and surrender, is that there's 11 things which guarantee your defeat. 11 just secular things, okay? And again, I'm not a preacher or a prophet. I'm a business guy. But there's 11 things, if you do these, you're defeated. And what's the title of this series? Win Every Battle. The battles for your life. You're going to lose some skirmishes. You're going to take a flesh wound, a knee wound, an arm wound, or something like that. You will never, ever, 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 ever take a head wound. Your head will not hit the ground. This is the battle. When we say win every battle, it's the battle for your life, that you find your destiny and you live in it. That's what this is about. So there's 11 things which guarantee your defeat. If they're in your mind or your speech, you're toast. Self-doubt, timidity, low self-esteem, negative attitudes, laziness, uncontrolled anger, not just anger, but uncontrolled anger, fear, which we've talked about, worry, procrastination, failure to focus, and depression over things you cannot control. If these things are in your life, you will never be successful at what you do. Winning every battle is not possible. Winning any battles is highly unlikely. It would be an accident. I don't like accidents. I make big decisions with lots of money every day. I can't take chances. And I'm actually not that smart. I have to have this supernatural wisdom or I'm toast. So if those things are in your life, you got to get rid of them. You can replay this again and write them down if you like. And what we're going to do in this series is we're going to remove, it's as if those things, those 11 things, survive on oxygen, let's pretend. We're going to remove their oxygen and they're going to die. They're going to go away. And we're going to do this really quick. We're going to rotate your life and it's going to slide together and feel really good, really fast. I want to move on now to a concept that's going to sound so simple. You're going to go, what's the big deal about that? This concept is called forgiveness. Forgiveness. I want to tell you a quick story as we lead into this. There was a young man, he was 5 years old, and he was in first grade. And he didn't know who his father was. He was living with his mom, and this was in very difficult times in the Depression. And his mother worked, and Eddie stayed at home. And so the routine was every Friday, Eddie would be waiting at the door, and the taxi cab would pull up with his mother. And then Eddie's mom would come in and get him, and Eddie's mother would take him out to the taxi cab, and they went to the grocery store. And they bought fresh bread, fresh bologna, and fresh mayonnaise. That's what they ate all week. But on this day, it was fresh, and there was lots of it. So this particular Friday, now they did that every Friday, but this particular Friday, same thing happened. The cab pulled up. His mom got out, got Eddie. They went out to the car. Now, Eddie worshiped his mom. Most 5-year-olds, they worship their mother, the dad. But at 5, they're really worshiping their mother. And so Eddie got in the cab with his mom, and on down the street they went. He noticed that they went past the grocery store. And he looked up and said to his mom, "Mom, the grocery store's right over here." And she didn't even look at him. She just looked straight ahead. So he just sank back in the seat in the cab and watched buildings go by and trees go by, and on and on and on they went. And then finally, after a long drive, they pulled up in front of this giant home. And they got out of the cab. The cab waited, but they got out of the cab and went inside and took this tour of this home, this big, big home, and lots of people there. And so finally the tour was over, and they proceeded toward the front door of this home, and 2 men reached down and grabbed Eddie by his shoulders and said, "Eddie, you're going to stay here." And his mom kept walking. And Eddie started struggling, trying to get away from them, and he couldn't. And his mom got all the way to the cab and started to get in, and one of the men bent down and whispered in Eddie's ear, "Eddie, this is an orphanage, and this is your new home." And Eddie yelled out at the top of his little 5-year-old lungs, "Mommy, I hate you, and I will never forgive you." Fast forward a bit. Eddie's now in his late 40s, and he's going to be ordained as a minister in about a week. And so he goes to sleep one night, and he can't sleep. He gets up, he pulls out the yellow pages and looks up something, and then waits until 8 o'clock in the morning. At 8 o'clock in the morning, he dials a phone number of a private investigator, a PI, okay? And he hires this PI to go find his mother. It's been a long, long time, many decades. And she never sent him a Christmas present, a birthday present, never called or never came to see him again. So it's been a long, long time. So about a few days later, the PI gets in touch with Eddie and gives him a phone number. The phone number is in Bellingham, that's Bellingham, Washington. And Eddie picks up the phone and dials the number, and on the other end of the line is a voice of a little old lady, and she says, "Hello." And Eddie says this, get this, "Mommy, I love you and I forgive you." And what I want to ask you, pretend we're just talking there in your car or your living room together, just you and me. What taxi cabs have you been chasing for decades? Because it's time to do something else and move on so you can go places you've never been. Forgiveness is incredibly serious. It's a spirit, really, in that other realm that's around us, that fourth dimension where it clogs things up, it shuts things down. Now, if you're a Christian, which I am, and I hope you become, the spirit of forgiveness is so powerful. When Jesus was hanging on the cross, one of the very last things he said, it's always interesting to see what people say right before they die, because it's profound. And one of the last things he said was, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And I always thought that was very noble and cool, and I like that. But what I didn't realize until just a few years ago was he had to do that. He had to do that because he lived without sin. And to not forgive would have been sin. God says, if you will not forgive them, I will not forgive you. I don't know about you, but I still sin. And I have to have forgiveness constantly. And so that means I have to forgive everybody around me. Now, it doesn't mean reconciliation. That's a different thing. That takes two people, two humans. Ladies, let's say you've had a relationship with some man and you were abused somehow or neglected or whatever. It was bad, okay? You might have been raped as a girl. Whatever happened, it was traumatic. It was trauma. And you say, "Mike, you don't understand. You don't understand. I can't forgive that person." And no, I don't understand. There's a lot of things I do, but I don't understand that sort of thing. But I know this. You have to forgive that person. Because here's what's happening. Part of your life, when you don't forgive somebody, this is so cool. When you don't forgive that offender, you're the offended. When you don't forgive the offender, they're stuck in the past. They are. And you say, "Well, I don't care about them." Well, then you need to do it for this reason. Part of you is stuck in the past. Okay, so let's say there's as little as a couple of hundred of those. A couple of hundred, 200. There's 200 people in the past that are stuck. Parts of them are in the past. And 200 pieces of you that are in the past. Now that sounds pretty serious, doesn't it? You wonder why you can't think clearly? You wonder why things aren't working out quite right and it just hurts? This is where it starts. There's surrender and then there's forgiveness. You got to forgive them. You say, "Mike, I can't." Yes, you can. And sometimes it takes time. But this is what I do. And I put that offense, what happened, I put it in my hand, I hold it up like that and I say, "Heavenly Father, you know what happened, and I'm giving it to you because it's too big. I don't even know how to forgive that person. It was so bad." So you lift it up, and most of the time, every time for me, hopefully for you every time, you'll feel some weight come off of you. And you'll feel that piece of you, that fraction of you that left when that spirit of offense came upon you and you forgive them, that piece comes back just like that.